Clog TV.
Beyond the policy.
You're welcome back to the KOKO Digest Morning Show. If you're just tuning in, this is the KOKO Digest Morning Show. We're about to have our main discussion. And please don't forget we're streaming live on Facebook and YouTube at Clog TV. So just find Clog TV, call a friend, text a friend, because today's topic seems it's very interesting because even people here in the studios are very, very excited about it. So for the main discussion, we have a lawyer here in the person of Ernest Hardy Natoma Silas, and he's an associate lawyer at Gomda and Associates. He specializes in corporate, commercial, intellectual property, and family law. And today, we're going to be discussing the legal capacity to marry, understanding the legal requirements and restrictions to marriage. So yes, I know you have people who are interested in this. So call your friends, text your friends, send in your comments to our live stream on our WhatsApp number that will be displayed. And then our phone lines will also be open so you can call in and ask your questions. Hello.
Hello, Yaya.
Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you're doing well, though.
I'm doing great. Yourself?
I'm also fine. So, marriage.
It's an interesting topic.
Yes, it is very interesting considering our society that we live in. What exactly is marriage in the legal terms?
Okay, so I'd like us to understand that marriage means different things to different people.
Okay.
And what we understand as marriage might differ from place to place.
Okay.
But to narrow it down, we'll look at the definition of marriage under the customary law setting and definition of marriage under the common law.
Okay.
So customary law defined marriage as the union between a man's family and the woman's family.
Okay.
So when they come together, that's what customary law will call marriage.
Okay.
Common law will call marriage a very interesting definition by Lord Penzance. He says marriage is the union, voluntary union of one man and one woman for life to the exclusion of all others.
Okay.
So basically what Lord Penzance is saying is that it has to be voluntary. When we talk about marriage, we are talking about a union that is voluntary.
Okay.
When we talk of marriage, we are talking about a bit controversial one in our day and age. It must be between one man and one woman. We know from time that certain places have, done away with that definition of marriage, where you can see a man and a man marrying or a woman and a woman marrying. And also it's to the exclusion of all others, meaning it must be between a man and a woman and no other person. It can't be 3 people, it can't be 4 people, it can't be 5 people. And it's for life, of course, unless the parties decide to dissolve the marriage.
Okay. So what are some of the legal... Okay, you've given us the customary one and the...
Common law definition.
Is there any other one, like something religious?
Yes, so under the common law definition, it mainly captures the Christian faith.
Okay.
So the common law definition captures the Christian faith. That's why it talks about the exclusivity of marriage.
Okay.
So it says one man and one woman.
Okay.
But when we look at another one is the Mohammedan marriage, where it doesn't necessarily have to be one man and one woman. It can be one man and 2 women or 3 women or even 4 women.
Okay.
So yes, that's another aspect of it.
Okay. So under the law, today we are focusing more on law. What are some of the legal requirements for one to marry?
Well, fundamentally, we have to look at age. We cannot bypass age. In Ghana, the minimum age is 18 years old. And even with the 18 years old, you need the consent of your parents.
Okay.
So anyone that falls below the age of 21, so that's between 18 to 21 years old, when you're getting married, you need to have the consent of your parents or your guardians.
Okay.
Another requirement or another thing you need to know is that when you're getting married under the ordinance, you cannot get married when you're already married.
Okay.
So you can marry twice
Okay.
if the previous marriage hasn't been dissolved.
Okay.
So under the ordinance, you have to marry once, and if you intend to marry again, you have to dissolve the first marriage.
Okay.
So yeah, that's another requirement that must be met.
Okay. So with the ordinance, like the customary, you see nowadays we have people doing the customary,
Yes.
the audit, everything
Yes.
together. So if someone is married, under the customary rites and goes to do the ordinance, and here in the customary rite here in Ghana, I think some tribes are allowed to take a second wife.
Yes.
What happens if they've also done the ordinance?
Okay, so it depends on which is done first. Okay, so in the event where one is married under the ordinance, which says that one man is to one woman,
Okay.
then no other marriage will be valid after that.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if he marries the other wives under customary law, it's still not going to be valid. However, if he marries under customary law and he intends to get married again, he will be permitted to get married to multiple wives. It doesn't even have state cap. It doesn't limit it. Once it's under customary law, you can get married to as many wives.
So as maybe the person has done both, isn't there a conflict?
Exactly, there is a conflict. So once he's married under ordinance,
So the ordinance supersedes the customary?
If he marries under the ordinance first.
Okay.
If he marries under the customary and he intends to get married again, it must be under customary law and it cannot be under ordinance.
Okay.
Because the ordinance will not permit multiple spouses.
Okay.
In that event.
I think I'm not sure I'm communicating. You see, some people do the customary.
Okay.
Then when they finish, they go and sign in court.
Oh,
and
okay.
That ordinance.
With the same person?
Yes.
Okay, so
that same person wanting to marry another person, but because he's done the customary one, customary permits it, but then the ordinance there does not.
Yes, so if it's the same person, it's permissible. In law, we call it conversion.
Okay.
So you've just converted your customary marriage to marriage under ordinance.
Okay.
So once you've done that, you can't get married to another person again.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Then
so you've converted your marriage and you no longer get the benefits or the attributes that come with the customary marriage.
Okay. So can you touch a little on the ordinance for us? We hear of it, even there are some myths about it that if you marry under ordinance, you can't even divorce and things like that.
Wow.
So if you can educate us a little.
Okay, so what we call ordinance marriage is basically a fraction of maybe the Christian marriage, the Christian religious marriage, and the Western marriage, what has been practiced in the West. And when you are getting married under the ordinance, you need the authority of either the registrar's certificate, the marriage officer's certificate, or the special license.
Okay.
Yes, so the registrar's certificate is the event. I don't know if you've heard people talk about maybe a court wedding or things like that. Yes, so they do it by the registrar's certificate.
Okay.
So they'll go to the district assembly and get the registrar to put the parties together and get married. The next one is the marriage officer's certificate, and that's what we see in the churches.
Okay.
So that's the certificate that allows pastors to, ordinate or pastors to put spouses together. Okay. And the last one is a special license. And in this case, you don't need to go to the registrar, you don't need to go to the pastor, but you can go to any venue of your choice if given, and the marriage can happen. Okay.
So are we required to have all three, or it's select, or even are there even instances where people go for all three?
Well, the law does not require one to have all three. Okay. You just need one, and
one of them.
Yes, any of them that works for you. If you want to get married in the church, you know which one it will best suit that. If you want to get married at the beach, people do that also.
Yes.
You know which one will best suit you. And if you want to get married maybe in the court or
so when you do the customary marriage, which of the licenses is best suited for that one?
Okay, so for the customary marriage, you do not need a license. So the license is for the marriage under ordinance.
Okay.
Yes, you do not need a license for the customary marriage.
Okay. So when the customary marriage takes place, do they have to go and do any registration anywhere?
Well, the law mandates a registration to be made.
Okay.
So after the marriages, after they've done the customary marriage, there's supposed to be a registration. However, it's not an essential requirement. Most people do not follow up with it. Mostly people would register if they need the marriage certificate for maybe travel, or maybe to secure something for their spouse, to just make it official that, okay, we are married. But if that isn't followed, it doesn't go to the root of the marriage. The marriage still sustains.
Okay. So even after marrying, maybe you've not done all the legal aspects of it, and then there's a court issue. The court would still recognize that marriage?
It depends on which marriage it is.
I'm talking about the customary one.
Yes, the court.
Still,
yes, the court is still recognized. In fact, for a customary marriage to be valid, it has to meet 4 main requirements. The first one is the consent of the parties. They must be willing to come together as a couple. The second one is the consent of the man's family accepting the woman as his wife. So the man's family must also accept. You know, we initially said as a coming together of the man's family and the woman's family. So the man's family must also accept the woman. And likewise, that's the third condition, is that the woman's family must also accept the man. And the fourth condition is cohabitation. Once all these are met, the marriage is valid. Okay.
So you've even touched on a few questions I have. But before we get there, does your mental capacity influence your ability to marry?
That's an interesting one. It does. It does. And I know we've used mental capacity loosely, but under our laws, it does not make the marriage void. It makes it voidable. And what that means is that it doesn't ultimately nullify the marriage. It doesn't ultimately nullify the marriage, but it's if you get married to somebody and after a while, you find out that maybe at the point of the marriage, the person had a mental, issue that you did not even know of. Or maybe the person, even at the point of the marriage, had a mental issue, maybe lack mental capacity, as you rightfully said. Then the person can take steps to nullify the marriage. But if the person decides not to, the marriage still subsists.
So someone who clearly is probably bipolar or schizophrenic can actually decide to marry and it will be allowed?
Exactly. If steps are not taken to nullify it, the marriage is valid.
So you see, based on some of the movies, we find that maybe somebody has sort of molested a mentally ill, let me even put it as intellectually challenged person. So these people are, they have the derogatory tag as a retarded people, or maybe even with Down syndrome and things like that, where they are not able to operate at full capacity as what we would term as a normal person. Can somebody like that be also made to marry? Let's see. So even my preamble, I didn't even finish it. My preamble was more like maybe a guy has molested a girl who has an issue, one of these defects. And then the girl's family says, no, you must marry her because you have impregnated her or something of the sort. Is that something that the law would also back?
Well, in that case, the first thing we look at is age. Age is going to be very crucial here. And also, you cannot force anybody into marriage, notwithstanding of the circumstances. If the person doesn't want to get married, the person is not going to get married. So if maybe the girl has been molested, or the girl, even if it's a consensual relationship, and maybe the girl got impregnated, and the families are like, you have to marry her, you impregnated her, you have to marry her. If the girl does not want to get married, nobody can force her to get married.
So I have a question. Someone is asking, what is the law's stance on cohabitation?
So cohabitation, I know mostly it's when it comes to customary law or customary law marriage, that's when cohabitation plays a very key role. And for a customary law marriage to be valid, cohabitation must be present. The people around, your neighbors, your family must see that the parties are living together for it to validate the marriage. So how long
what is the duration that the law would decide that, okay, yes, these people are...
Well, there's no duration.
There's no duration. Okay.
There's no duration. And even in this, and in our time, a lot of things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple can get married, and maybe after a while, shortly after, one has to travel, one has to leave, and all of that. So cohabitation will not necessarily mean that they must be together at the same place at the same time for maybe a year or 6 months, but just the showing to the world that, we are together.
Okay.
It meets the criteria for cohabitation.
Okay, so another question here says, so does the law validate cohabitation before marriage? Then indeed the law is at war with the word of God. Miriam.
That's interesting. Does the law validate cohabitation
before marriage?
Well, it's up to you. It's up to you. If you want to cohabitate before marriage, it's up to you. The law wouldn't stand against you, neither will it, It all comes down to your freedom of association.
The questions have started coming. People won't let me ask. So this one says, what is breach of promise to marry?
Oh, okay. That's an interesting one, breach of promise to marry. So basically, breach of promise to marry in simple terms is when one person, mostly the man, promises to marry a woman, gives her promise, fills her with dreams, hopes. She gives the man her all.
Yeah.
And after a while, the man says he wouldn't do it again. And that's what we term as breach of promise to marry. And he doesn't even necessarily have to say he wouldn't do it again. If after a while you see that the man is going to marry somebody, especially under the ordinance. And once somebody is married under the ordinance, the person cannot go ahead to marry again. So that's also a breach of promise to marry. And that is, you can have a course of action against the person.
Okay,
yes,
you can I was going to ask.
Yes.
So what would you even, so the suing, what are some of the benefits you can get for suing somebody who has failed?
So, breach of promise to marry, you only get damages. Okay, you only get damages, and by damages, the court can order that the man maybe compensates you in a way. It can be penal.
Okay.
It can be penal. They might give him they might award hefty costs in your favor. So that's what you can get. You can't force the man to marry you at the end of the day. There's no specific performance for breach of promise to marry.
Something like breach of promise may seemingly be just word of mouth.
Yes.
How does that work where in a court where we need evidence for some of these things?
Well, so that's the issue of evidence is a difficult one. Like you said, how does it work? How are you able to show that, he promised to marry? There are other things. Some people buy rings.
Okay.
Some people buy rings. Some people, substantiate their promises in a way, cause maybe the other party to even leave their job.
Yeah.
Maybe working in Accra, you have to travel, come and stay with me, maybe in a different region or in a different country, only for the person to end up not marrying you.
Okay, so what about if all you have is just videos, or those videos of you together and then text messages or something? Because of course there aren't any other tangible things you can use,
tangible proofs.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's a question of evidence. All what you have, it will have to be determined by the court.
Okay.
Whether there was a promise to marry from the look of things, whether there was an actual promise to marry, and if there was it breached? If it's the court comes to the conclusion that it was breached, then there's a course of action.
Okay. So there was also another question about something like the cohabitation.
Okay.
If something happens to one partner, what are the liability, what's this word? Indications or,
When you say,
what happens with that?
If something happens to one partner, what do you mean?
So maybe terminal illness or even death or some injury.
Okay.
Probably caused by virtue of the fact that they are
living
together.
Okay,
let's try and toe the line of abuse.
Okay.
Where we are cohabiting and then you have injured me probably beyond repair or something. What are the aside the domestic abuse or domestic violence parts of the law that will handle that, the fact that we are cohabiting, what are the liability issues there that can be looked at?
So it depends on the parties.
Okay.
It depends on the parties. Like you rightfully said, there's obviously a domestic abuse. There's obviously a domestic abuse situation there where somebody is abusing the other person. So you can take maybe you have a course of action there.
Okay.
But aside that, as somebody who you are looking to get married to is already abusing you in a situation like this, I think it's up to you to come up with the.
Some people love.
I think it's so up to the parties, to make that decision. The law is not going to come in for you in this situation.
Yeah.
You have to make that decision. Do you want to continue to remain with the person? If not, you know what to do.
Okay. So in a situation where, by virtue of cohabiting with you, the girl has fallen ill, maybe some exposure to some pathogens or something, will you be held liable?
That would be definitely based on the facts of the case.
Okay.
Were you the cause of it? Did you owe her maybe some duty of care that you didn't exercise properly? So yes, it will depend on the facts of the case. Where it has been established that there's a duty of care, then you'll be held liable.
Okay, so I know that stuff like child marriages are prohibited; they are illegal in the country. But in certain tribes, child marriages are actually legal, so to speak, or are there. I think even from the little I remember in Akan Mamre that we learned in primary school, there was something about even they can betroth a young girl, probably just on the cusp of puberty, to an older man, probably as a way to pay off a debt, or just even him taking an interest in the child. So he starts to pay her school fees, all the duties the father should actually take on, then he's doing that. How does that, what are the dynamics with the law?
Well, the law frowns against child marriage. Like I said, the legal age of marriage in Ghana is 18. And even with that one, you need the consent of your parents. Between the ages of 18 to 21, you need the consent of your parents. So all of that is illegal. I know depending on maybe where you're from, certain customs would promote certain things like that, but it's against the law. Okay. It's against the law. Notwithstanding what your custom says, it is against the law. Okay. So you can't use a child to offset a debt, and we've already established that consent is very vital in marriage. So in most of these cases, the child would even consent.
Yeah, the child is not able to consent.
Isn't able to consent, wouldn't consent. And their parents are using, force to... Yeah. Yes, so that all of that is not permissible under our laws.
So how does the law determine what is permissible and what is not? Because customary marriage is permissible, but then here, there's another customary right or customary activity is frowned upon. How is the law able to pick and choose?
Well, even the customary law, most of it is still spelled out. Okay. It's written in black and white. The laws are written in black and white. We have our constitution, which is in black and white for all of us to see. We have acts. We have other legislation, other pieces of legislation that is written in black and white. Okay. That will determine what is permissible and what is not. Okay. What is permissible and what is not. And it's, with regards to child marriage, it's not permissible. Okay.
So we have another question from a viewer. So it says, my husband and I passed through the marriage process, but I came to know that he has a lady with children without my knowledge, and he has found a secret way to marry her in traditional ways. What should I do now?
Okay. Can you take the question again?
So my husband and I passed through the marriage process, but I came to know that he has a lady with children without my knowledge, and he has just secretly gone to marry her in the traditional way.
That's,
what should I do?
Maybe a bit unfortunate in her circumstance. However, it's valid. Okay. So she got married to her husband under the customary law marriage, right?
Yeah, it seems
That's what she
so.
said.
She just said
Traditionally.
marriage process. She said he has married the other woman in the traditional process.
Okay. So it depends. If she got married traditionally, what we call customary law marriage, okay, then he can go ahead to marry the other woman and it
Okay.
is valid.
Okay.
However, if her marriage was under the ordinance, any subsequent marriage becomes invalid.
Okay.
For the children, they are still going to be his children.
Yes, of course.
So yes.
So let me clarify for everybody. Let me ask to clarify. The church wedding and the ordinance, are they the same?
Okay. So the what we call church wedding is a subset of the ordinance.
Okay.
So like I said before, even under the ordinance, it's either done under the authority of the registry certificate, the marriages officer certificate,
Okay.
or the special license. Okay. And mostly what we call church wedding falls under the marriage officer certificate.
Okay. Okay.
So yes, it's a subset of the ordinance.
Okay. So we have a comment here. Diana Voski Katamani says, handsome man.
Oh wow.
Yes, you already have fans. Okay, so let us continue.
Okay.
So what are some of the legal requirements for obtaining a marriage license? And okay, wait, before that, what's the difference between a marriage certificate and a marriage license?
So it's basically the same
It's
thing.
the same
yes.
thing. Okay, so what are the legal requirements for obtaining any of those?
Okay, so the legal requirements for obtaining a marriage certificate, it depends on which one exactly are you going after. Are you going after the registry certificate? Are you going after the marriages officer certificate? Or are you going under the special license?
Okay.
So let me just give a bit of clarity. So the registry certificate is what is used, like I said, people speak about court weddings and stuff like that. So that's what is used for the court wedding. We don't necessarily have a court wedding, but for the lack of better word, that's what is used for the court wedding. Then the marriage officer certificate is what's used in the church. So if you want to get married in the church, that's what you go for. And the special license, like I said, if you want to get married elsewhere, you go for the special license.
Okay, so with a special license even, who is given the authority to issue it?
So you go to the assembly.
Okay.
Yes, for all of them, you go to the assembly.
So all of them are in the assembly?
Yes, the district, you can go to the district assembly.
Okay. So the lady who sent her question about being married and then finding out the husband she says her marriage is under ordinance, but he's gone to marry traditionally the other lady.
So it's invalid.
It is invalid.
The second marriage is invalid. You can't get married once you have a subsisting marriage under ordinance.
Okay, so we have one last question, then we take a quick break. So this one says, good morning. Can a court marriage be considered substantive without customary marriage in Ghana? This is from Justice from Kumasi. And can it also be done without the parents?
Yes and yes. So with the court marriage, it's valid. Without the parents, like I said, once they are of age, that's 21 and above, you do not need parental consent. So yes.
So another one just came in. Let me read it quickly, then we go on a short break. This one says, oh goodness, give me a second. Yes, it's financial. We've not reached there. It's financial responsibility only for men by law in Ghana. What can be done to a wife who refuses to contribute to the family or for the family? Sorry.
That's an interesting one. No, it's not only for men. And you can compel her to maintain the family as you ought to, especially when you have children.
Yeah.
You know, given the dynamics of our culture, it's very difficult for you to demand financial support from your wife. So that's why I said it's an interesting question. But if you feel like it's getting that bad, you might as well enforce your rights and that of your children as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
It's time for a quick break. Right after that, we will continue the conversations and open the phone lines for you to call in and ask our lawyer here all your marriage questions. But please don't take all my time. I also have questions to ask. We'll be right back. welcome back to the KOKO Digest Morning Show. If you're just tuning in, this is the KOKO Digest Morning Show. We are talking about the capacity to marry, understanding the legal requirements and restrictions to marriage here in Ghana. And we have a lawyer with us, Ernest Hardy Natoma Silas, and he's an associate lawyer at Gomda and Associates, and he specializes in corporate, commercial, intellectual property law and family law as well. Of course, after this conversation, we'll have him back, so don't worry. Please don't forget to send in your comments, your questions to our Facebook and YouTube live stream, to our WhatsApp number. Our phone line will also be open very soon for you to call in and ask your questions. So, Lawyer Hardy.
Hello, Yara.
Let's get right back into it.
Okay.
In some wait, I have a few comments here. Let me read them before we go on. So the person who asked about whether the marriage can be done without the parents says, Thank you for the answer. Clock TV is the best so far. Thank you.
Thank you too.
And
I hope the person is not planning to get married without their parents.
I'm sure he's old enough. Maybe, well, if something happens, we'll hear. So, hey, you ready? Okay. So there's a slight jab at you.
Okay.
He says, our lawyer isn't married yet, but he has read the law, so he has a little knowledge about it. But experience also counts, so tell him to get married and get the full package because he's a very nice and gentle man. Well,
that's an interesting
whether or
thing.
not you get married, the law is the law.
The law is the law.
Don't pressure our lawyer. He will enter with style. So then the lady whose marriage, her husband has married another lady under customary law now. She says, please, I don't know what to do. What should I do now? The lady I'm talking about was his former girl. Can I go to court and end the marriage? Please tell me something. Our lady is pretty desperate.
Okay, so what I'm getting from this is she's married. Her husband has gone ahead to marry again, even though they're married under ordinance, and she wants to do something about it. She wants to. Well, she can apply. Yes, she can apply for the marriage to be invalidated.
Okay.
To be nullified.
Okay.
To say, because it's you can't, like I said initially, you can't get married under ordinance and get married again. Okay. So the marriage on its own is a nullity. It doesn't have any legs to stand on as far as the law is concerned. The second marriage is a nullity. Okay. However, if she feels like she needs to take in certain steps, she need not take any steps actually. But if she feels like she needs to take in certain steps, she can.
He's going to marry somebody else. So probably, he even has kids with the other person, maybe he's going to even live with her or something. So maybe she wants to end the marriage and then...
Yes, so with regards to that, as far as marriage is concerned, the law does not perceive them as married. So they will not, for instance, when it comes to inheritance, she cannot inherit from him because she's not his spouse. Okay, so even if he dies, their children can. Okay. So even if he dies today, the second wife, so to say, who is not actually a wife, cannot benefit from his estate. Okay. However, if she even goes ahead to, let's say, nullify it in her own way, it doesn't stop the man from sleeping in her house or at a place or renting a place with her or having more children with her. He's still going to continue.
Yeah, but I think she wants to leave because she's saying, can I go to court to end the marriage?
Okay, end her marriage.
Yes, her marriage.
Oh, yes,
okay, she just said the marriage. I don't know if it is the other people's marriage or hers, but I'm sure...
Either is still accurate. Either is true. You can go ahead and end your marriage. You can... dissolve your marriage on the grounds of adultery. Okay. Yes, which is very evidenced by the kids.
So yes, even though we will have a discussion on divorce later, maybe in our subsequent interviews, can you just give us briefly what are the main grounds for annulment or divorce?
So when we talk of divorce, we are talking about the dissolution between marriage between parties. Okay. There's one ground for it in Ghana. And that's that the marriage has broken down beyond reconciliation. Okay. That's the main ground and the only ground, actually. The marriage has broken down beyond reconciliation. And there are elements to prove to that.
Okay.
So you have to establish at least one of these elements, and one of them is adultery.
Okay.
So that's why I said in this case, she can go for a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
She can go and dissolve the marriage because there's evidence of adultery.
Okay.
Another one is separation.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is unreasonable behavior.
Okay.
When we talk about unreasonable behavior, what we are saying is that the man has behaved in such a way that you cannot reasonably expect, another human being to live with him.
Okay.
So these are just some of the ways to establish that the marriage has broken down beyond reconciliation.
Okay, but let's say the marriage has not broken down beyond reconciliation. It's just these two parties that have decided, you know what, we are not doing it again.
Yes.
Is that grounds enough to...
Well, yes. The law also gives room for maybe certain instances as that. Mm-hmm. The parties just want to come together and say, you know what, I don't want to live with her, she doesn't want to live with me, we want to go our ways.
Okay.
Yeah, so the law also allows for such an avenue.
So what about if one party wants out, the other party is being hysterical and holding on or something like that?
It happens. It happens sometimes. It happens sometimes where you see one party being very much in support of a divorce and the other party saying, no, I'm not going to let you go. At the end of the day, it comes down to consent, like we rightfully said.
Okay.
You don't want to be together, no. I mean, you can try your best, but you can't continue to live with somebody who doesn't want to live with you. Even if you don't, the marriage doesn't get dissolved in the court setting, you'll be living a miserable life. So yes, it happens, but it doesn't stop the dissolution of a marriage.
Okay. These people, if there are questions, let me ask mine. So this one says, a man marries under customary and marries another woman under ordinance after 2 years. Which marriage is valid, and what will the law do to such a man?
Okay. This is interesting, and this will be very specific. I mean, you can tell the person to feel free to ask his question.
Well, he says which of the marriages is valid?
Well, the first one will be valid.
The first one is the customary one.
Yes,
and then now valid. He's also going to do ordinance after 2 years to another
that
woman.
Wouldn't be valid.
It is not valid?
No, it's not.
Okay. And then what will the law do to somebody who does something like this?
There isn't much. The second one is not even, so it's a nullity. Nullity means it doesn't even exist.
Okay.
Notwithstanding the
documentations and everything.
Notwithstanding the documentation and the ceremony and how much you spend on a wedding and the rings, it doesn't exist. Once there's an existing marriage, you can't get married under ordinance.
Okay. But what if, you see, in this our Ghana here, something like the customary one, they finished, they didn't really do any of the legal processes that you talked about. It's optional, right?
Yes.
But this ordinance one, they've done the whole church thing, getting all the licenses and stuff. It still remains.
Yes, so we need to understand that there are 3 forms of marriage in Ghana. All of them are valid in the same measure.
Okay.
Not one is more valid than the other. So we have the marriage, the customary law marriage. We have the Mohammedan marriage.
Yes.
And we have the marriage under ordinance.
Yes.
All of them are valid.
Sorry.
So whichever you decide to engage in becomes valid.
Okay.
And notwithstanding your next, so let me give you an example. I married under the Mohammedan marriage, and I go ahead to marry under customary law marriage. Both of them are valid because both of them will permit multiple spouses.
Yes.
However, I can't marry under any of them and go ahead to marry under ordinance because the ordinance marriage does not permit multiple spouses.
Okay. We have a caller on the line. Hello.
Okay.
And where you're calling from, please?
Yeah, I'm Samuel calling from Awoshi.
Okay. Hello, Samuel. What is
I want to find out if a marriage can be nullified based on deceit.
Deceit in what sense?
From the part of a man who from the beginning does not tell that he is employed. And he has been given the chance for about 5 years. Still, he is not making any effort to do something to bring food to the table. Can the woman in this instance call for a divorce?
Okay. So based on deceit, maybe you lied, you were employed, and then deceit comes that you don't have a job to do and you are not even trying?
Well, deceit, yes. But in this circumstance he's given, it might be very difficult to establish it. Unless, of all, you want to establish it under unreasonable behavior.
Okay.
And say that maybe he's behaving in such a way that you can't be reasonably expected to live with him. So in that situation, yes.
You can.
However,
okay.
deceit in general can also invalidate the marriage.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, I see. I'm not going to read anybody's. Oh, let me read one more, then I'll ask mine.
Okay.
My producer. So, how can a marriage under ordinance be separated? I mean, the process one can go through to get the marriage separated, either man or woman.
Okay, so we are talking about the dissolution of a marriage.
Yes.
Okay, so it's done through a court process.
Okay.
Yes, which is known as divorce. So you just have to establish that the marriage has broken down beyond reconciliation. And I previously went through what it means for a marriage to be broken down beyond reconciliation. We are talking about the fact that maybe a party has committed adultery, or a party has been separated for 2 years.
2 years. Hey, 2 good years before
2 good
they can...
years separation.
Hey.
You can establish any of them, or the party has behaved in a way that you can't be reasonably expected to live with that person. Yes, or dissertation. The party has left you and no chance of coming back, no chance of getting back together. You can also apply for a divorce in that sense.
Okay. So, yes, on the separation thing.
Okay.
What about, so what happens or what does it mean if maybe 2 people got married under the customary law, but they don't live together as a family unit? They have kids, but so to speak, your local residence, sort of.
Okay. So when we talk about...
Okay, let me even give it for over 10 years. Is that still a recognized marriage?
It can be. So let me break it down. When we talk about separation, we are not necessarily talking about location.
Okay.
They having 2 separate residents, or they having... In fact, there are instances where a couple living in the same house, the court has held that there's been a form of separation. In that, as far as marriage is concerned, they are not living together as husband and wife. That's basically what separation entails. The parties not living together as husband and wife. The wife not performing her duties as a wife. The husband not performing his duties as a husband.
Okay.
So notwithstanding their location, notwithstanding where they are staying, notwithstanding all these other circumstances, if it has been established that the wife is not, performing her duties as the wife and vice versa.
Yeah, so even for follow-up for this particular question, they are not in the same household. So they are not performing husbandly and wifely duties to each other. The man is not providing for the household. He's not the sole provider. It's rather the woman. So it's basically like the woman is with the kids and she's more or less a single parent. Is that a recognized marriage?
If that's the idea, so from what you're saying, they've parted ways.
It may not necessarily be. They are still in contact.
Do they perceive themselves as husband and wife?
I should think so. But you see, with the perception of husband and wife, let's say the man is providing for the family.
Yes.
But maybe it's on occasion in this circumstance. Is that a recognized marriage?
Like I said, does the wife see the husband as her husband? And does the husband see his wife as his
wife? Okay.
Yes. So these are some of the dynamics that will be in play. It can happen, like I said, in this day and age, they can parents can decide to maybe separate their tasks and responsibilities. Some parents will say, you know what, I'll take care of the firstborn, you take care of the lastborn. And they are living in 2 separate locations. And that's what's happening. The man is not necessarily providing, the woman is not also necessarily providing. But they are still together as a family.
Okay.
So yes, it all comes down to it.
Okay, so we have a caller on the line. Hello, your name and where you're calling from, please. Oh, we lost the caller. We hope you call back soon. So how early can a couple divorce?
Okay, so the law prescribes 2 years.
Okay.
So 2 years after you get married, then you can initiate a divorce proceeding. However, if under those 2 years you feel like you still want to divorce the person under certain conditions, you can't go ahead and divorce.
Okay, so what are some of those conditions?
So one of those conditions is that the person is behaving in
the unreasonable behavior, right?
This goes beyond unreasonable behavior. Okay. This depravity. So yes, that's the word, okay. Depravity. So when it's, unreasonable behavior is I think it's a less harsh word. Okay. But when it's depravity, the person is behaving in a very harsh and depraved way, then you can initiate a divorce under 2 years.
Okay. So, another question. Good morning. Please, I learned that if you do ordinance marriage and you are not divorced, you can't even do what we call engagement or customary marriage. Please, how true is that? I learned you will go to jail for about 10 years minimum. Please, how true is that one too? So this is from Yao, from Aoshi. Okay, before we answer Yao's question, we have a caller on the line. So, hello, your name and where you're calling from, please.
Hello, good morning. I'm calling from Victor.
Okay. Your question, please.
Yeah, I wanted to find out concerning the white wedding and that is being organized in the church. Can you do it without the permission of the law? Let's say without certificate, issuance of certificate. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
No, you cannot.
Okay.
No, you cannot.
You can't. Okay, so your question has been answered. You cannot do that. So yes, let's get back to this question. He says, I learned that if you do ordinance marriage and you are not... Please, I learned if you do ordinance marriage and you are not divorced, you can't even do what we call engagement or customary marriage. Please, how true is that? And I learned you will go to jail for about 10 years minimum. And how true is that one too?
Okay, so the first bit is true. Once you are married under ordinance, you cannot get married under any of the other forms of marriage. Okay. Islam, the Mohammedan marriage or the customary law marriage. So that bit is true. However, the 10 years jail term is untrue.
It's not true.
Yes.
Okay. So, now that the questions have reduced, in some cultures, you can marry from your father's family and things like that. But according to the law, you can't marry close relatives. How do Ghanaians, or how are we supposed to navigate that? Okay,
so that's that borders along the lines of affinity and consanguinity.
Okay.
And what that means is, like you said, marrying relatives. It depends, or it borders from culture to culture.
Okay.
The law does not necessarily speak on getting married to relatives. However, the law speaks on having sexual relation with relatives. So that's incest. And the law speaks on a man having a sexual relationship with his daughter, granddaughter, sister, mother, and grandmother.
What about niece, nephew, cousin?
So the law doesn't speak on that.
Okay.
The Criminal Act, Act 29, doesn't speak on that.
Okay.
So when it comes to affinity and consanguinity, we are looking at the customary law practice. Okay. In certain customs, your cousin is regarded as your sister or your brother.
Yes.
So in those customs, they do not permit marriages within maybe the first cousin, but might permit within the second or third cousins. So yeah, it depends on culture to culture. But as far as the law is concerned, it cannot be between you and your sister, or you and your mother, or you and your daughter.
Okay.
Yes.
So what about because I think sometimes we see these kinds of posts where somebody has married his stepdaughter.
Stepdaughter. Okay. So once the person is a stepdaughter, adopted or taken in as a stepdaughter, the person is recognized as a daughter, legally speaking. The person is recognized as a daughter. The father is performing the roles of a father. So in that case, the father cannot go ahead to marry the daughter.
So what about if the woman's daughter or the woman in question, the mother of the stepdaughter here, she and the man are divorced.
Okay.
But he was the one who took care of this child, you know,
Yes.
till she became an adult. What about that as well?
That's in such a situation, as rough as it looks, once there's a divorce and the responsibilities of the man as father of the girl is no longer in play,
Okay.
he can marry her. Because at that point, he's not her father. He doesn't operate as a father. They don't have any biological bond as well. So he can go ahead to marry her.
But wouldn't that beg the question of some pedophile tendencies? Because you took care of this child
Yes, so
from infancy or something.
yes, as I initially stated, that's a very disturbing instance to look at. Yes, legally speaking, it might be permissible, but I mean, when we look at it as human beings on the moral ground, it's not something anyone should encourage.
Okay. I think I'm getting a few more questions on divorce. We need to have you back for divorce conversations. So, someone is asking, for this one, you've already, please, for your question. So someone says we have, you said they have 3 forms of marriage, but he says there are 5.
Okay.
So he says 1, customary marriage, 2, ordinance marriage, 3, Islamic marriage, 4, common law marriage, and 5, traditional marriage. So if you can distinguish, he says you should distinguish what he has stated.
Okay, so legally speaking, based on the Marriages Act in Ghana, we have 3 forms of marriages. I can get where he's coming from. So what he calls traditional marriage still falls under customary law marriage.
4.
And
so
what
which one
he
is
says,
the common law marriage?
Common law marriage, it falls under the marriage under ordinance. So it's still the same forms of marriage he has.
He has listed.
He's listed.
Okay, so this one says, how can one get divorced under church marriage? The process one needs to go through.
Okay, so then again, we don't have church marriage in Ghana.
It's
so
ordinance.
What he's referring to is the marriage under ordinance.
Okay.
And that's what we do in court, the divorce proceedings that are initiated in court. So it's, you come by petition.
Okay.
And in your petition, you establish that you are married to this person and you want to get divorced to this person. You have to also make known the ground under which you are getting divorced, which is that the marriage has broken down beyond reconciliation, and you have to also establish how it has broken down beyond reconciliation. So we are still looking at what? The adultery, the unreasonable behavior, separation, desertion.
Okay. So this one says, please, if the 10 years is untrue, what does the law say about such an offense? That is the person who goes to marry under ordinance and then they're not divorced, then you go and do the customary marriage as well.
So in this case, the person is married under ordinance and hasn't divorced. So the customary law marriage will not be.
It will not hold.
Yes,
so nothing will happen to the person.
You can have a cause of action against the person, though, even in the lines of breach of promise to marry, especially when you did not even know that the person has previously been married.
Okay. So can the ordinance marriage? So let's say this is a man. So his ordinance wife, can she take cause of action against him, and can the customary wife also take cause of action?
Okay, so I do not see how the ordinance wife would take a cause of action against the man. Yes. However, the other wife might succeed in a breach of promise to marry, especially if she did not know he was already married. Because if she knew he was already married under ordinance, then she ought to have known that there's no way he could have married her.
Okay.
So it might be difficult to succeed under a breach of promise to marry.
Okay. So, but then the ordinance wife, I'm here with you, and then by the time I realize these are pictures on social media, there should be something she can also, do some cause of action she can take, maybe some distress or something.
Well, in a way, maybe under thought, she would definitely have a cause of action. However, under the Marriages Act, there's none. There's none for her. Unless, of course, she wants to rely on that to dissolve the marriage.
Okay. Our questions. This one. Okay. So there's another question here. It says, can a person under guardianship or conservatorship get married?
Okay, that's a good one. Here we are looking at the age. That's what matters most. Is the person above the age of 18? If yes, is the person between the age of 18 and 21? If yes, then the person can get married, but will need the consent of his or her guardian.
Okay.
But if the person is over the age of 21, the person is of sound mind, the person can go ahead to get married.
Okay. But then, you know, the whole thing about conservatorship,
Yes.
does that not affect somebody's chances?
It still boils down to capacity.
Okay.
It still boils down to capacity. And once the validity requirements are met, mental capacity, age, the person can go ahead to get married.
Okay. So someone is asking, what is bigamy and the penalty for it in Ghana?
So bigamy in this sense is marrying two women. So then again, it depends on the type of marriage that has been contracted.
Okay.
If we look at customary law marriage, it does not frown on bigamy.
Okay.
So a man can get married to as many wives as he wants.
Under customary. Please take notes, my viewers. Under customary
law,
okay.
The man can get married to as many wives as he wants.
Okay.
Under the Mohammedan, the man can get married to as much as 4 wives.
Okay.
Yes. However, the issue of bigamy will only come in play if the marriage is marriage under ordinance,
okay.
where you are limited to just one wife.
One. Okay. So, can a marriage be annulled if one party didn't meet the legal requirements?
Oh, very well, very well. It can. So, in the situation where one gets married, let me give you an example. The person gets married under ordinance. He goes ahead to get married under ordinance again. You know, the second marriage in this situation wouldn't be valid.
Yeah.
So they need not divorce, because divorce will only be done when there's a recognized marriage.
Okay.
However, to cut whatever that has been done, you need to go through a process of annulment. And in that case, you can annul it. Okay. And other requirements that are very essential, like marrying with the marriage certificate or the special license or the riches certificate. If you don't comply with some of these and you get married, the marriage becomes null. And exactly, you would have to go through the process of annulment before.
Okay. Well, sadly, we have to bring the KOKO Digest Morning Show to an end. But I promise you, we will have Lawyer Hardy back so that you can ask all your questions and we can discuss more things. I think a lot of people are interested in divorce.
It's a very interesting
things like that.
topic.
We will also, since he also specializes in family law, we will get into that too. You know, property, inheritance, interstate inheritance laws and things. Yes. But for today, this is all the time we have. And thank you so much for staying with us. Thank you also.
Thank you so much for having me.
But before you go, any remarks you'd want to give our cherished viewers, even shout outs?
Oh, well, I would like to thank God for this opportunity. I'd like to thank you for having me. It's a very interesting topic. I know a lot of people would be interested in listening. A lot of people would be interested in hearing what is being said about marriage and about divorce. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you also for granting us the chance to interact with you. Do you have any shout outs to anybody, Gomda and Associates, your people?
Oh, of course. So my boss, lawyer Ali Gomda.
Okay.
Big shout out to him. And my senior Bernard Agote, big shout out to him as well. And all the associates at Gomda and Associates, a big shout out to them.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, thank you, my cherished viewers, for joining us here on the KOKO Digest Morning Show. A big thank you to our management, our production team. A big thank you to our sponsors, everybody that join hands to make this program a success. A big thank you to Papa J and Papa C, God over everything. We are thankful to you. We are grateful for all your help and immense capacity that you've built for us here. We would see you again bright and early on Tuesday morning. So do have a blessed weekend ahead.
Clog TV. Beyond the policy.